Welcome back, OIG family, to another exciting episode in our AMA series. Today, I had the privilege of speaking with Adrian, who is the CEO of FanFury. FanFury is a daily fantasy sports world that is trustless, immutable, and community owned, and uses Fury as its reserve currency. Remember, like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification button to stay up to date with all the great things coming out of OIG. Without further ado, let's jump straight into the AMA. Welcome, Adrian, to our AMA. I'm excited to talk about FanFury. Can you explain what your role is in the project as well as what FanFury is?
Sure. So my name is Adrian. I'm the CEO, co-founder of FanFury. My role at FanFury essentially is the Mad Hatter. I'm the mad scientist that comes up with all the weird, requests for the technical team to do. Essentially, I sort of design the concept out, talk about the tokenomics, talk about the value and the revenue streams, the revenue generation, and generally speaking, the utility of the token. So I work with two other founders, Shubhendu and Vivek, who each come with their own experience as well. Vivek is a marketing specialist. He comes with over 10 years taking a lot of commercial projects to market. And Shubhendu is our technologist. He's headed various teams over the last 10, 12 years as well. So together we've sort of started FanFury as one of the only decentralized daily fantasy sports platforms out there. And we're very specific that, we haven't really done the league format because we know that the league format is being done in a lot of places. But one of the things that we're doing is sort of focusing on the daily fantasy sports route. And a couple of reasons for that are simply the amount of time it takes and the investment of time it takes to, put your into an entire league season is very difficult for a lot of people to do. But when you're playing on a daily basis, it's a lot more easier to sort of play when you want and not have that burden of, am I falling behind? Am I losing my rankings? And in the process, make a lot of money as well. One of the benefits, obviously, of FanFury is the fact that we're decentralized. We get to give the ownership of essentially, a fantasy sports platform back into the hands of the people who really play it, the fantasy sports players. And I think that traditionally speaking, that's what, the entire experience here has been about for all of us. All of us are fantasy sports players. The entire team, 80% of us are huge sports fans. So big things coming for FanFury. I think that in terms of the fantasy sports space, we're here to change a lot.
For sure, and especially with blockchain integration, that's sure to be a huge revolution within the industry. Fantasy sports is a I would say, billion-dollar industry already. So to have blockchain integration will really disrupt the market. Could you tell us a little more about the team that's involved to achieve all of this? Because this does sound like an ambitious feat.
It does. And we've actually got quite a large team. We're actually just touching 18 members right now, and a lot of that is actually the technical team itself. Because behind the scenes, this really is a workhorse. It's handling a large amount of transactions. And really speaking, that's one of the reasons we went with Terra, was because of the fact that in terms of security, in terms of scalability, these are foundations that we can rely on the Terra network for. So when it comes to the transaction speed, the cost, we're able to actually optimize things much better than most other platforms out there, where essentially your gas fees are tremendously high, sometimes even more than the actual entry fee itself. And for players in the fantasy sports world, it really isn't optimum for them. Even though they're losing money hand over fist in traditional platforms, it just isn't optimal for them to come to decentralized platforms and play. So one of the big things that we've focused on is the fact that our network needs to be cheap to use. It needs to be easy for people to come in and play. It needs to be very, very simple in terms of the experience. So our team is a reflection of that. We have an entire marketing section. We've got 5 marketing experts working on everything from content to SEO. So we're really taking on the traditional players at their own game and marketing this as a traditional fantasy sports platform. Because really speaking, even in terms of the experience, the way that our design team has crafted it out is to sort of mask the identity of what DeFi goes on in the background. Fantasy sports players aren't really interested in staking and bonding. I mean, these aren't really terms that a lot of DeFi folk understand, let alone fantasy sports folks. So the idea was to use our designers, use the skill sets. I mean, like I said, the team is a reflection of that. It's design, marketing. We've got a whole host of technical people working on everything from the smart contracts to the database to creating our own oracles. Because really speaking, there aren't really data oracles that provide you with the kind of data that we needed in order for us to run a fantasy sports platform end to end decentralized. So I think that, like I said, the team is a reflection of that. We've got blockchain experts, we've got back end and front end experts, we've got marketing experts, and really speaking, our entire product is also a reflection of the team itself.
Really cool. Yeah. And, mentioning affordability and entry point, low entry point is very key to mass adoption as well, right? So it's good that you recognize that and you have a team that matches that skill set. So I guess more about FanFury. How does it work? What are the different features and products that separate you from, let's say, other similar products or projects out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in a lot of respects, we've tried to keep our platform as simple and easy to understand, which means keeping it as similar as most of the other platforms that you see out there. So when you look at the experience of the platform itself, it's going to look and feel very much like you're playing any other fantasy sports platform. And we've done that for a reason, simply because in terms of like game experience, this is a game experience that people already know. So in terms of the learning curve, we can keep that learning curve to an absolute minimum. People don't really need to come here to learn the game. They know the game. They know what it's like to come in and form a team. These aren't experiences that we need to teach them. And from that point of view, this really, gives us a huge advantage, because most other blockchain games, you really have to learn the game. You've got to spend, time, not just buying something within the game, but actually spend time learning the game. And that takes time, that takes money, it takes a lot of, ability from your day as well. So in our terms, we're actually looking at, the market that's already playing these games. And it's a huge, tremendous market. And the difference between us and their traditional players is really in terms of like the returns that we're able to give our players as well. One is the fact that we've got one of the lowest rake fees in the industry. We're at 5%, which is really, really tremendously much lower than everybody else. DraftKings, Dream11, FanDuel, I mean, they're anywhere between 8 and 15, sometimes 22%. So really speaking in terms of how much, of that pot you're losing to the house, we're one of the smallest. And I think it also in terms of like both. One is the payouts themselves that are going to your, to the people who are actually winning these pots, because now they've got like 95% of the pot to split between them, and also in terms of where that 5% is actually going. So in other platforms, generally speaking, that pot size, first of all, it's smaller at 75-80%, sometimes around there, and that's being distributed, really speaking, between a very small group of people. You're looking at 25-30% max. So 30 people out of every 100 that participate are essentially taking something back. In our case, it's very, very different, because we've got a much larger, pie to sort of play with. We're able to include a lot more of the playing population, which means that we can distribute winnings to like 75% of the playing floor, which is almost double of what our competitors are able to do. And not just that, but we're also able to compensate the 25% of the people that haven't really won, the losers, so to say, with a 5% cashback. So if you're part of that remaining 20% that just hasn't been able to cut it, you're still getting 5% of whatever you've put in back to you. Which is to say that, I mean, when you're participating on our platform, there really isn't a way that you're losing your entire amount. You're going to essentially win with every single, play that you make. Not just that, but you're going to take home much more because of the fact that we offer much more. And over the long run, when it comes to the DeFi side of things, in terms of the ownership itself, the ownership is yours. And most other platforms don't do that. Being able to, let's say, own DraftKings, being able to own a part of it, being able to take the profits that it generates, it's a huge thing. And there are very, very few people who are privy to that. You know what I mean? So from the point of view of what we're doing with that 5%, really speaking, that's profit. It's profit that the protocol makes, and not a lot of platforms, in the blockchain world can say that they're generating profit right off the bat. So in our case, what we have the opportunity here to do is not rely on fees, not rely on, traditional token, distribution schemes. We rely on profits, that are distributed to the people who actually matter, the stakers in our system. So if you want to own DraftKings, you don't have the ability to. But if you want to own a fantasy sports platform, you can. come here, buy a few tokens, and stake them. You not essentially by taking your the profits that the platform is generating. That's what you are, a stakeholder. So I think like in terms of what separates us from people, ownership of the platform and the profit sharing mechanism that we have in place, and two, obviously the large returns that you're going to get when you're playing. So traditionally doing these two things in tandem, we're looking at really speaking a generational opportunity.
And I like that you mentioned, from a UI and interaction standpoint, that you're not really changing it to look like something that people have never seen before. It's something that they're accustomed to, have used in the past, but it also brings this fresh breath of innovation by integrating blockchain as well as different features that you mentioned. So it's very cool to see. Now, you also touched on the Fury token. I'm sure there's a lot of utility to come with that. Could you dive in a little more into that?
Sure, absolutely. So the Fury token is a fixed supply token. We've got 420 million tokens. And out of that, what we're doing is we're doing a fair token launch where actually we haven't done any IDOs really, and we're not planning to. We have done actually one pre-sale with Atlo protocol and huge success. But really speaking, what we want to do is we want to have an egalitarian approach to this. We want to make sure that people have a fair chance of getting our token at a fixed price, and as many people have that chance as possible. So in terms of like the tokenomics itself and the Fury token, it's going to be an in-game token, which means that the utility of the token itself comes from its usage in the game itself. And I think that what separates us from most other platforms that use their token in game, like Axie uses SLP, is the fact that like the way that we use the token itself in terms of pricing our contests is not done in the token. It's done in USD. So what this does is, one is it maintains the integrity of your entry fees, it maintains the integrity of your prize pool, and two, it also works based on the price of the token itself. So when you're, let's say, putting your bets in, ideally speaking, you're putting $10 worth of Fury into your bet. You're not putting 10 Fury or $10. And what this does is, based on the price of what Fury is at that point, you're actually buying the token at that price and then moving it in. But actually, what we do on our side is we store it in USD so that we maintain that integrity again. So when you have a system where the integrity of the prize pool is maintained, when you're making payouts, you maintain the integrity of the payout as well. So if I promise you that I'm going to pay you $100, I need to maintain that promise. And the way that we do it is by ensuring that we hold it in USD, and then when the payouts happen, actually market buy our tokens at that point to give out the rewards. So what this does is it does two things. One is it provides a huge amount of market buying pressure, both when you're buying tokens to enter and then buying to push the tokens back out. And two is, because of the burn mechanism that we have in place, the burn isn't arbitrary. It's based on the price of the token. So if you have a high token price, you're generally going to burn very few tokens, versus if you have a low token price, you're burning a lot of tokens, and then these are essentially being burned from your token, from your circulating supply itself. Essentially, I'd like to touch on two things here. One is obviously the way that the rewards are being distributed, because most other protocols either do it through fees or through allocations, which is inflationary. In our case, what we're doing is we're distributing these rewards from the circulating supply itself, and then burning from that circulating supply to bring the circulating supply down. So not only is our reward programs non-inflationary, the burn mechanism itself makes the entire experience deflationary right from the get-go.
So definitely a lot of utility within the Fury token. Could you tell us more about the fan clubs and how they interact with the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I was saying before, when it came to the distribution of the profit itself, the way that this 5% of rake fee is distributed, essentially is 40% of that is given to our stakers, profit distribution right into the hands of them, and 40% out of that is burnt. So like I mentioned, our burn mechanism essentially burns based on token price. What we're also doing is we're distributing a small percentage of that to our liquidity providers, which in this case is the platform itself. We have protocol-owned liquidity, and we can touch upon that later. A small percentage of it goes to charity, and then a small percentage comes to the team for further development. When it comes to going back to the stakers themselves, one of the things that we've done is to really, like I said, innovate on the DeFi side of things. Going back to my point about keeping the experience really as simple for the user as possible, and moreover, trying to essentially make sure that he doesn't have to deal with Defi when he doesn't really need to. The fact is that he needs to take part in staking. There's no two ways about it. And we have a bonding program as well, which means that we need to ensure that he's taking part in bonding as well. So one of the ways that we're doing that is essentially using, lore and sort of background visual design. So think of it as, you're essentially coming into the system. You need to join, one of these sports fan clubs. Let's say the LA Lakers fan club, and then when you join that club, you're essentially paying a membership fee, your staking amount. So in this case, what we're doing is we're ensuring that people sort of come in and take part in the staking experience, and we're tying it to something that they love. Clubs that they follow every day, clubs that they, games that they watch, games that they sometimes go to, teams that they really follow, and teams that are really close to their being, so to say. So the idea here is that we're giving them the experience to do one, own that fan club within the game itself. So being able to actually own that fan club within the game, and then after that being able to actually profit from that as well. How are you profiting? Profits from the platform. So we're really looking at the fantasy sports players themselves as being the owners of this experience, because I mean, who's going to really want to own that fan club? It is a fan of that club, and we're trying to tell people, look, there is one of these in the game, per club. If you are that fan and you really want that club, it's yours for the taking. You just need to come in and show people that you deserve it, and that's not by bidding the highest, because that's just too easy, right? You don't want to have a Sheikh Mansour, situation here again. So what we want to do is we want to say that you bring in the most number of people to support your bid on that fan club. So let's say, Bakir, you want Chelsea football or Chelsea fan club. You're going to go to all your supporters and tell them, hey, you know what, we got to get this, because like, I want Chelsea fan club, and you guys are Chelsea fans, you want Chelsea fan club, so let's get this, and you bring in as many people as you can. So the idea is you create this competition between fans themselves to really want this fan club, because you're getting two things. One, that pride that comes with, like, I own Chelsea fan club within this game. There's one of its kind. And two, obviously the revenue that you're going to generate, which is really speaking perpetual, because as long as you have sports happening, you're going to have sports bets being placed. As long as you have sports bets being placed, you have profit. So really speaking, what we're driving home here is that this isn't really a traditional staking experience for your DeFi audience. This is a chance for traditional audiences to own a fan club within a game and also make a lot of money from it. So the auction itself is based on the number of people that you bring in. So the winning person, let's say, Bakir, you've brought in 5,000 people, but along with you, there were 3 other people who competed for Chelsea, and they each brought in, let's say, 2,000 people as well. Now, what's going to happen is that you are the owner of this fan club. So as owner of this fan club, you get 1% of the revenue that this fan club generates, and two, all those people that were essentially brought in from your competitors, all of them are actually part of your club as well. They're all part of your staking experience, so to say. So they've bought into the club. They aren't buying into the celebrity, so to say. The celebrity is just the conduit. So not only do you now have access to your crowd, you've got access to this crowd as well, which is a huge crowd, right? Now, when this essentially goes into the staking system, Bekir has Chelsea fan club, and Chelsea fan club has 10,000 people who are staking, 100,000 tokens in that fan club. Just like you, there are 249 other teams out there with 249 owners with their own group of stakers, so to say, or members in this case. The idea is that we gamify that, and that's gamified every single day. So every day, 20% of the total staking rewards that are distributed, the profits, they go to that top club that finishes at the top when the staking rewards are being distributed. So it is up to these owners to go out there and, churn folk, bring folk in and say that, we want to get as high up that table as possible because we want that 20%, because it's a huge amount. And as owners, you get 1% of that, that prize that your staking group is assigned, so to say. Add to that the fact that the staking mechanism is auto compounding, and we're looking at like huge amounts of rewards being distributed to fans themselves and fantasy source players who are going to come back and play, bring their friends, and really speaking, be the organic source of revenue that they will depend on.
And you make a very good point of bringing ownership to basically to the consumer, the fans, the users, which has been neglected in the past. And really, by giving the power and the monetary power and putting it back into the consumer's hands, you create a more wholesome experience for both the consumer as well as the clubs themselves. It's great to see that you appreciate and understand that they are the reason that we have this platform to begin with, right? It's
Yes,
all in the
absolutely.
fans.
And I think also in terms of like think the way that we're conducting the auction itself, because we don't want someone from Defi to come in and put in a bid that's just so high for a real fan to come in and sort of outbid. What we're saying is that this isn't about how much money you have to bring in. This is about how many people can really look at you as being that leader, to bring that crowd in. So think of the content creators out there. Think of the guys that are really doing God's work when it comes to their clubs. They put out a load of free content right now. In some cases they charge membership fees, but ideally speaking what they're doing is relying on a sports institution for their revenue daily. And the idea is that we are giving these guys an opportunity to say, look, you know what, you don't need to rely on your subscribers or that model itself in order for you to put out good content. You need to put out good content for your sports club. It's because you love your sports club. So why don't you let that sports club pay you back now? And the way that it can do that is by ensuring that you have this continuous stream of revenue coming in month on month. And from your from your audience, think of a YouTuber who's got his audience paying $100 or £150 per month for his subscription package. The idea is to tell them, look, you don't need to pay that every month. What you need to do is just come in during this auction and bid on my my sort of claim on Chelsea fan club, and if you win, you don't ever need to pay subscriptions ever again, because not only is it a one-time subscription sort of payment on your side, it's also a chance for his subscribers to come in now and take this stream of revenue that's going to flow into him over the long term. Traditionally speaking, as long as he stakes, and to be honest, the idea here is that because these are fantasy sports players, they don't understand staking. They don't understand what the whole idea behind, putting my coins into staking is. As far as they're concerned, I have a small part of this fan club. I'm earning some revenue from the fan club. I'm good.
Impressive stuff. Really cool to see it, and really excited to see this in action. I'm sure everybody else is. So let's switch gears here and move on to our next segment, which is our Twitter questions. And we've selected 5 Twitter questions from our AMA announcement, and we'll start with question number 1. So question 1 comes from Nidu, who asks, what are the ways for your project to generate revenue in the long run? What is the progress of business development, and what are some of your commercial partnerships?
That's a great question. So we're actually talking to a few Premier League clubs. We're talking to a few athletes. Our roadmap essentially has a lot to do with athletes and with with the sports industry in general. So what we do have is we have an NFT project that's coming out very shortly. It's going to launch sometime in June, and post that we're actually looking at an athlete DEX. So think of athletes with their own social tokens, being able to create their own small social economies. So there is a lot that goes into that. There is a tremendous amount of work that we're looking at. But in terms of commercial partnerships, we're looking at trying to focus on clubs. We're trying to focus on players. We will be doing some very big announcements, I would say, in the coming week. So I'd say look out for that. You're going to see FanFury plastered in quite a few places when it comes to television audiences as well. So this is going to happen before our public sale as well as during our public sale as well, going on to the end season, and then we're looking at some brilliant new deals with the new season as well. So we have big plans with partnerships. That's going to drive tremendous amount of opportunity into the platform itself, both from sponsors as well as from television audiences around the world, because obviously being able to associate with a big brand like the Premier League gives you certain opportunities that come with broadcasting. More than that, I think that in terms of the way that we're looking at selling these fan clubs itself. The idea is to bring in a huge amount of people from the fantasy sports industry, and to be honest, it's a fraction, it's a drop in the ocean. When we're looking at the fantasy audience itself, Dream 11, which is an app in India, they have 130 members, playing members, the 130 million playing members. When you're looking at the entire blockchain wallet industry, you're looking at 100 million wallets. It sort of gives you an idea of the scale at which gamers sort of game. And when we're looking at the entry points for these people, they're tremendously low. So I think that in terms of revenue generation, we have a huge opportunity when it comes to partnerships, when it comes to the athlete decks itself, because the token of exchange is going to be the Fury token. And then what we're also looking at doing is we have a banking integration coming up as well, which means that you will be able to on-ramp, off-ramp directly from our platform. You will be able to use your debit cards directly on our platform to buy in, to the Fury token. Eventually, and this is not very long, we're looking at Q3 probably, you're going to be able to have your own FanFury debit cards. This is going to allow you to do a lot. I mean, the opportunities that come with this are tremendous, and I really want to, sort of touch on this. The fact that, you can use that debit card anywhere in, over 180 countries to spend in your local currency. You don't have to have the local currency. You can hold your money in USD and Bitcoin and, Fury in this case, and be able to spend that locally in Thailand or the Philippines, so to say. So being able to do that is a tremendous opportunity. Obviously, it comes with KYC requirements, but I think that the opportunity cost itself is not as much to pay when it comes to being able to do the kind of things that we're allowing people to do. So in terms of the the value of the token itself, the token is associated with all these different properties. Either the token itself or variations of the token. You have G Fury, which is our cashback in the game. You have to stake a certain amount. You have to join a club. Have membership in one of these clubs in order for you to claim that G Fury. So it encourages people to stake as well. The bank itself, has X Fury, which is going to be a staking token available for access to profits that are going to be generated by our banking entity. So when it comes to the value, long-term value of the token, it is huge, not just in the sports market, but in the fantasy sports market, as well as the banking market as well.
That's a lot to unwrap there. I mean, first of all, having an on-ramp and off-ramp capability, and then also having a debit card that's going to be available soon, really removes the barrier of entry to anybody that's looking into FanFury. So
and to be honest,
yeah.
Being able to, we're offering people the ability to create IBAN accounts. So you can create an account worldwide as well. We're tying up with, I'm not going to go into the tie-ups right now. I can't really afford to, but being able to open an account from probably anywhere in the world. Right now, most of our competitors are either focused on the US or the EU. They're not really focused on sort of a worldwide adoption, but we are. So you will really be able to sort of, bank worldwide. And the giving people the ability to do that from a fantasy sports app is tremendous for us, because it really means real world adoption, because of the scale and the numbers. And, what we're saying is that if you, let's say, move your salary to our IBAN account, we'll give you a free ETF along with that as well. So if you can essentially promise us 5 years of salary into that account, we'll give you a free ETF of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a couple of Apex assets that comes to you free. You're not paying for that. Like, we're essentially putting in the deposit that's going to be required to buy those assets, to DCA into those assets on a monthly basis. So giving people the option to have a 10% interest rate and then also have the ability to get a free ETF.
Yeah,
not too bad.
It speaks for itself. A lot of incentives for anybody looking to get involved with FanFury, as well as just anybody looking for a banking solution. Like you said, this is from a global standpoint. This really aims to help people all over the world and provide that bridge from crypto to fiat. That really makes it easier for people. So
fantasy sports players are lazy. They don't want to understand a whole lot of stuff. They want to come and spend their money and then take their rewards out. So I mean, the system is really designed for them to do that. Social logins will make it very easy. No seed phrases for you to remember. Just log in socially, and then being able to on ramp, off ramp with your debit card, credit card, bank account. Being able to cash out with that. These are huge opportunities for us.
No, for sure, for sure. Amazing. Let's move on to Twitter question number 2, which comes from Milaik. And Milaik asks, there are already a few fantasy gaming platforms available in the crypto market. Can you please tell the main advantages and benefits of choosing FanFury? How will you attract gamers from other platforms? What will you offer them so they will come to start and play with FanFury?
Yeah, I think that really speaking, this goes to our the core of our ethos, and how we're conducting our fan club sales. Because really speaking, who are the owners of FanFury? FanFury is one of the only community-owned fantasy sports platforms out there. And what we mean by that is we are really speaking giving the ownership of the platform to the community. So when you offer fantasy sports players, the opportunity to take part in, let's say, ownership of DraftKings, they take it. Here you're not given that opportunity, but we're giving you that opportunity here. So when we're talking about like bringing in real world players, our entire focus is the real world. We really aren't focusing on a crypto audience because it's an audience that's too small for us to, really speaking, target in order for the growth that we're looking at. The only way that we can really achieve the growth that we're looking at is by targeting a traditional fantasy sports audience. So by pushing these fan clubs, pushing the auction and the sale of these fan clubs to a traditional fantasy sports audience, like we're essentially targeting content creators. We're targeting sports content creators, fantasy sports content creators, the guys that really are in the game themselves as being owners of these fan clubs. So when we talk about like bringing in people to play the game itself, the owners are people who play the game, which means that they themselves are either going to be playing every day or bringing in other players organically into the game, from other platforms. We have essentially the best, organic team growth that any platform could ask for. Like DraftKings and Dreamil and FanDuel spend 800 million a year, trying to replicate this experience. We're essentially going to do it for free. Being able to rely on your investors, so to say, to bring in a organic audience. How many people can say that? Like, your investors want their money back. These guys want to play fantasy sports. It's as simple as that. And the ability to then become an owner anytime you want, be able to take part in the profits of the platform whenever you want, being able to just buy the token and stake it, and you suddenly are taking profits from this huge enterprise. Because fantasy sports really is a monopolized industry. You have 10 platforms maybe all over the world, and these 10 really control 95% of the market, and the market is a $21 billion market. So when we are looking at the $21 billion, where is that money coming from? It's coming from players. So being able to give these players the opportunity to then own part of that very elite group of people who take profits from this is a tremendous opportunity, and one that we're going to exploit to its fullest. So our entire focus, I'm going to say, is a traditional fantasy sports audience. It's this $1 billion audience out there that is just waiting to be tapped. And then the solutions that we've worked on with Terra, being able to leverage the Terra network itself and the primitives that Terra offers, is one of the huge reasons why we're able to offer reward systems that are not just out of this world but deflationary as well.
Yeah, very good point on focusing on traditional markets to promote organic growth, because I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And
like most of these fantasy sports platforms rely on three things. They rely on acquisitions,
Yeah.
they rely on retention, and they rely on reward programs.
Yeah.
They're only able to sustain their reward programs through a very small period of time, 3 weeks maybe, and then you see a huge decline in retention simply
Yeah.
because they cannot afford to give their customers that. So acquisition, retention, and rewards, these are three things that we spend nothing on. So acquisition comes through our owners because they are fantasy sports players. Retention comes because they are owners of the platform. They're not going anywhere. And then you have essentially your rewards and your referrals coming through these players themselves who are bringing in other players. And because of the fact that we're working with blockchain and Terra, we have a reward system that can really speaking, like we've got Anchor that's giving us 20% interest every year. It's tremendous for us. I mean, even if we take 5% of that interest, like it just blows everyone else out of the water. We can afford to up that, reward, the 5% cash back up to even 10, maybe 12% without feeling a pinch, with still giving our stakers healthy profits.
Really, really cool stuff. Okay, so let's move on to Twitter question number 3. And this comes from Tommy. And Tommy asks, most games today are expensive for some people to join. Does FanFury support small-scale investors?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, which other game company in the world is going to give you the opportunity to DCA into their profit program with a $10 entry fee? So we're saying that with $10, you become an owner, you start taking profit in this large enterprise, and then with another $10, or well, don't wait for your rewards to pay out in 3 days, and you'll have enough to have game entries. So the idea is that the lowest entry fee for us is $10. What we've noticed is, with the research we've done, generally speaking, people are willing to pay up to $25 for an entry fee, and this is worldwide. We're not just looking at like a US audience, we're looking worldwide. We're looking at the Asian market tremendously, and I'll come to that as well. But like $25 is generally what people are willing to pay. We're looking at 10. So you can then DC into at least 2 games a day. $10 is not particularly large. And what we're saying is that you don't need to learn anything here. The idea here is that because of the learning curve being so steep, people already know the game. They don't need to come here to learn the game. They already know it. They expect a certain reward from other platforms. They're going to get double of that here. So I think that with that first experience, you're suddenly going to realize that, you know what, this is sustainable long term, and I'm going to get this on every game. Why do I go back?
For sure. No, I mean, up until this point, there's just so many benefits for to join FanFury. I really don't see the need for any other platform, and obviously that's going to show. Time will show the revolutionary product that FanFury creates and how it'll interact within the industry.
Yeah, we're coming for everyone. I mean, we're
Yeah.
coming for everyone.
It's great to hear. Let's move on to question number 4, and this comes from Real Fan. Real Fan asks, what are the main sports for which FanFury has adapted it in its protocols? Many platforms
Sure.
focus only on soccer as the most recognized major sport worldwide, but do you plan to bring your protocol to the NFL or NBA?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think a lot of platforms focus on football because, really speaking, blockchain doesn't offer any more, solutions when it comes to data itself. So if you want to have decentralized data, first of all, football is okay. You'll probably get sports data. Sportsbook data, yes. But we're not a sportsbook platform. We don't do gambling. We're a fantasy sports platform. We're very clear about that. Even when it comes to regulations themselves. So I think that, like, when it comes to the data itself, if you want to have decentralized data, it doesn't exist when it comes to other sports. So one of the big things that we're doing is that we are essentially taking on that, that mantle, so to say, of coming up with this fantasy sports data. So yes, we will have NFL fantasy sports data. Yes, we will have the NBA fantasy sports data. Not because it already exists, but because we will create it. We will have our own oracles. When I say our own oracles, we're creating those oracles. So you will be able to get validated fantasy sports data on any of those sports, going forward. Which is to say that yes, we will have other sports as well, and it'll give other platforms now the ability to increase their sports portfolio as well. What we're doing is, in terms of market research, obviously football is this massive sport worldwide. So yes, people start with it because it's the safest bet. In our case, it's going to be very similar, but we're also looking at cricket, and this was one of the first sports that we started when it came to decentralizing the data, because it's a huge market here in India, and like I said, 130 million on a single platform, and they cover like 90% of the country. So when it comes to like targeting the subcontinent, we're absolutely looking at it. We're definitely looking at cricket as a sport. We will. I'm going to say that we're going to try our best to launch with both football and cricket. Although I will say that the NBA, the NFL, and I'm going to say either the NHL and the MLB will be very, very close to follow that. We're also looking at MMA, which will come in a little later. So really speaking, I mean, we're not just looking at, like, from a fantasy sports player's point of view, giving you a lot of options, but from a blockchain point of view, giving so many other protocols the ability to now call on our data and be able to essentially use that data to build out, innovative new platforms, both in the sportsbook industry as well as in the fantasy sports industry itself.
Yeah, it seems like it's in everyone's interest for FanFury to succeed from both a developer standpoint as well as a consumer standpoint. Just having that decentralized data available to call to, like you said, it will be a benefit for anybody in the industry as well.
I agree, and by sort of integrating, a payments provider and so many other, traditional Web 2 tools into the platform, it gives us the ability to then say, very much like the Terra network itself, reach out to other networks and say that, like, we can be the conduit. We can be that. It's in your interest to, for us to succeed, like you said.
Yeah, very cool stuff. Now let's go on to our last Twitter question, which comes from Lorella. And Lorella asks, I would like to know what will be the percent of Fury that will be distributed to gamers who stake to the liquidity staking pool. Will the additional earnings of Fury be done on a continuous basis? At what period of time can gamers withdraw what they have staked?
Yeah. So one of the big things that FanFury is doing is, what we're doing with liquidity and our treasury. So I'm going to touch on the liquidity, first, and then we'll get to the treasury probably just after that. So in terms of liquidity, we're ensuring that we have protocol-owned liquidity. So it will be possible for people to take part in a bonding procedure where they're essentially eligible to claim Fury tokens at a discount. And what they're doing is they're providing us with liquidity in order for them to get their Fury tokens at that discounted price. So the idea here is that we're not giving people the opportunity to take part in the LP side of things, but we are giving them the opportunity to provide that liquidity to us. So what this does is, in most other platforms, you're renting your liquidity to the protocol, right? The liquidity, the protocol is essentially paying you a renting fee by rewarding you with rewards. But essentially, it's your liquidity and you can take it out whenever you want to take it out. Whereas in our case, what we're saying is that we will buy that liquidity off you, and we'll buy it, what we're giving you in return is discounted Fury. So what this does is, in our case, it gives us the ability to, one, own our own liquidity and ensure that, we don't have this, black swan event, so to say. And two is it ensures that, because of the fact that the liquidity rewards themselves are coming from two places. One is it's coming from the bond, an allocation that is allocated to the bonding, mechanism itself, and two is it's coming from the rake fee itself. So like I said, 10% of the allocation goes to your liquidity providers, and that's us. So in terms of adding to the liquidity, that is perpetual as well, because I mean, as long as it's coming from profit, one is it's non-inflationary. Two is it's going to be endless. As long as, like I said, the platform is live, we are essentially putting profit into that liquidity pool. So it's essentially getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. What this is going to do is you're going to come to a point where you have, very, very large amounts of liquidity in that pool, and it's going to be locked away. Like, people aren't going to be able to take that liquidity out because they don't have any part of that liquidity. And because of the bonding mechanism, we're only running bonding for 3 years. So if you really want to get Fury tokens at a discount, you've got 3 years to do it, and that's it, you're done. So really speaking, for people, this is a limited time offer. If you want to get Fury tokens at a discounted rate, this really is a limited time offer for you to get those tokens as early as possible, because we've got a very limited supply. A lot of it is going to be locked away in staking programs over the long term because of these traditional fantasy sports players not really knowing what staking is about. So when it comes to that supply, it's going to diminish very, very quickly because of the burn on every single contest. So you're going to want to get that discounted Fury as early as possible, and the bonding is going to be possible through two mechanisms. One is through providing liquidity, USD Fury tokens. The other is by providing plain Jane USD. And the way it works is that if you're providing both tokens to provide an LP, it's going to go into the liquidity contract. But if you're providing plain Jane USD, it's going to sit in our treasury. And what we're doing with our treasury is really important as well. So what the treasury is essentially going to do is it's going to hold three assets. It's going to hold AUSD, which is Anchor's deposit token. It's going to hold S gold tokens, which is essentially gold tokens that are essentially tied to a gram of gold. It's 22 karat gold. 1 gram of gold is one token. Generally hovers at about $61 a token. And then we are also going to have P Luna, which is essentially Luna's principal token. It's the price appreciation token. So you have 40% sitting in AUSD, which is generating interest, and every year that interest goes into three things. One is it goes into token buybacks that go to our stakers again. Two is it small part of it goes back into that reserve to again build on the next year. And the third part, which is like 5%, goes into a team account, which is used for the team to then further our development as well. When it comes to the S-Gold tokens, that's another 40% of our treasury. And what we're doing is eventually we're going to have a system, because of the fact that our token is deflationary, we'll get to a point where around the 240, 250 million mark, where we will be able to back every single token in circulation with one gold token being held in our treasury. So what this does is you'll have a floating price that floats above $61, and if at all it hits $61, you can come to our platform, claim a gold token, and then be able to either hold that gold token or be able to cash out that token for physical gold on a partner website.
Wow. Wow, just so many features and so many different things and ways to interact with FanFury, and I mean, it's just so much to unwrap. I love to hear all these features, and I can't wait to actually use them. Like for myself, just like I'm gonna obviously take advantage of the Fury tokens at a discounted rate now, and reap the rewards when it does go live. So that's very cool stuff. So that wraps up our Twitter questions, and let's move on back onto our AMA series, and we have just a couple more questions left. So let's go through your roadmap up until this point. What are your achievements that you are most proud of?
Yeah, so I think like some of the achievement that we're really proud of is obviously having our banking integration. That's a huge thing. Being able to offer on and off ramps to an audience is a major thing. It's something that people build protocols around. So when it comes to being able to offer that service as a sub service really to the protocol, it's a huge feat and an achievement that our technical team can really take the hats off to them for that. The second thing is obviously in terms of like the contracts themselves. These are really complicated custom contracts that we've built. These aren't traditional DeFi contracts. These are large transaction contracts that we've had to build from scratch with a team that really speaking started with no knowledge of Rust and very little knowledge of blockchain development. And the progress that this team has made in 4 months is amazing. To be able to then have in the industry call on their expertise for certain things, it shows the amount of maturity that they've achieved in a very small amount of time. And I think like a lot of that is down to the fact that we've gone through a lot of changes to the protocol from what it really started with to what it is right now. So being able to offer people the ability to have social logins with the platform, it's huge. It's a major problem in the Web3 world right now. And really speaking, ID as a service is going to be massive, in the coming year, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that we've solved it. We're still running integrations, but being able to offer it as part of our main platform, having that integration possible, and then obviously just the fact that we've got testnet up and running. I mean, like you can now, really speaking, go and test the platform out before you actually make a commitment to us, before you make a commitment to the platform in our public sale. I mean, there are not a lot of protocols out there that really offer you the ability to have a working product before their token sale, and their token sale actually being a fair token sale. So when it comes to what differentiates us from other protocols, I think like 99% of protocols are going to be different from this, because we have a working testnet, we haven't done our public sale, we're having a fair launch public sale, and we're opening it up to traditional audiences as well as blockchain audiences. We're not being discriminatory. So
For sure. Really cool stuff. So you have had a testnet, I believe, and how has that gone?
So yeah, I mean, to be honest, our testnet's been delayed. We really need to, sort of shout out to the people who, are investors. We've had very good investors, OIG included, who have been very patient with us, because I think they understand, I guess, in terms of what we're building, it really is revolutionary. So we've been delayed by, I'd say, about 3.5, 4 months now, but we finally have our testnet out. We're able to offer the testnet right now only to Terra users, unfortunately, but that will soon change before our platform goes live at mainnet. We are going to have the ability for other users allows traditional users to log in with their Google accounts and stuff like that and be able to connect their bank accounts. So those are the final few integrations that we're working on right now. But testnet has gone really, really well. We are able to see how these clubs are being assigned right now. Right now, there's a referral system in place. So testnet is actually a closed testnet. It's closed off to a limited number of participants. But if you want to gain entrance, you can through one of these referral programs. So testnet is actually going really well. We're able to interact with the chain. Our contracts are interacting brilliantly. In terms of the reward distribution, we are actually about to deploy our reward distribution contracts in a few days. So we're really going to see how our stakers perform. What are the APR rates going to be like? And we're trying to get as much of that fitted in before our mainnet, I would say. But right now, I say the focus for our testnet is just mainly on the contracts. It's being able to really test out the contracts, make sure that we have no bugs, we've got no security issues. It's important for us. And really speaking, we're not concerned about the UI experience for the time being, because the UI is going to go through a major overhaul, because of the fact that we're going to have lore that's going to come in. So every club is going to have a history. The club owner is going to be able to write his name into that history. So there is going to be a huge change when it comes to the UI itself, because it's going to integrate elements of this history. We've bought an Astroverse planet. So it really is going to integrate a lot of these elements from the Terra ecosystem itself. So you're going to have Fury with its own planet and its own people, with its own factions. You're going to have a lot when it comes to the UI side of things, and being able to call on our traditional fantasy sports audience, with terms and really speaking with nomenclature that they understand. Join a club, pay your membership fee, buy tokens at a discount. Why do we need to use staking, bonding, and things like that when we can, very easily cover it up and then get them to participate willingly?
And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, 3 to 4 months of delay is not a big deal compared to the ambitious goals that you guys have and what you're aiming to create within the blockchain space. So I'm glad to hear.
The sports space.
Yeah, and the sports space, right? So glad to hear that it's working out and it's gone well, and it's on Terra, so it's making waves right now and making its mark on the future of sports and blockchain. So speaking of the future, could you tell us what's coming up on your roadmap and what's most exciting for you?
Yeah, so we actually have dynamic NFTs that are coming out. Like I said, somewhere around June. We're trying to look at maybe the Terra NFT, the Terra conference that's coming up in Austin. So that's one of the things that we're very focused on right now. These are going to be 3D voxel NFTs. Think of them as trading cards that dynamically change based on your player's weekly performance. So, think of you've got Bukayo Saka, you've got his, NFT, and the rewards that you get every week are going to be determined by how he plays that week. So if he plays that week and does well, he finishes up there in the gold, category, you're going to get a lot of rewards. He finishes in bronze, he gets injured, you're going to fall right down into that bronze category. So think of it as we've only got 250 of these cards, so it's very limited edition, and these are perpetual paying cards, which means that they pay out not just every week but every month as well. So your weekly rewards are based on performance, your monthly rewards are just a hey, here's a reward for you, sort of payment. One of those passive income type, you're just going to get a payment every month. So the idea here is that, traditional NFTs don't really do much. They sit there as your DP and sort of make you happy. Here, what we're giving people the opportunity to do is to invest in something that gives you passive income, and not just gives you passive income, but makes you get involved, that keeps you engaged with that NFT on a week-on-week, month-on-month, year-on-year basis, because it is multi-year fantasy at the end of the day.
Oh man, there's just I wish we could keep going on with this AMA, because we obviously have so much more to dive into. But obviously,
the athlete Dex is something that I don't think we can cover right now. But I think that just on a very high level, social tokens for athletes, the very best. We really are talking to the big guys.
Yeah, and that's why we obviously want to see you again on our show and discuss more into the social economy behind the athletes Dex, because I think that's truly going to revolutionize the space.
It is tremendous. It is tremendous.
Yeah. Well, Adrian, thank you so much for coming by and telling us about FanFury. For all our viewers, where could they find more of FanFury?
Yes, so we're actually live at fury.fan. So if you get to fury.fan, you can actually take part in our testnet if you're one of the whitelisted entries that came in our Jan registration program. You can also find us on Twitter. We're active on Twitter. It's FanFury Official. And through that, you can get to our Discord channels. You can get to our Telegram channels. Right now, we're running some weekly fantasy sports games within the Discord channel itself. So come be part of that. There are loads of opportunities to be part of the testnet reward program if you come into our Discord channel right now. So if you are not on that whitelist, I would say get to our Discord channel, and there are huge opportunities for you to then take part in our reward distribution that's going to happen for the testnet program itself. So yeah, come find us. We've got lots to offer.
Awesome. And all the links, all the official links will be in the description below for our viewers to find out more about FanFury. And once again, Adrian, it was a pleasure speaking to you. Can't wait to see more from FanFury.
No, the pleasure's been all mine, Vicky. Thank you very much for having me on the show and for introducing me to your audience. I hope they love FanFury. We can't wait, to have them on our platform. But thank you again for having me, for taking the time. I know it went, a little longer than you expected, but I appreciate all the time that you've spent with me as well.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, OIG family, that wraps up another episode in our AMA series. We hope you liked it. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification button to stay up to date with all the news coming out of OIG. Remember, all the official links will be in the description below. And until next time, we'll see you soon.